Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. For today's project, I'll be using a few of my favorite products from Trinity Stamps. I'll be working with the Garden Flowers die set, which you know is one of my favorites, along with the Simply Sentimental Friend collection. This includes a set of dies with shadow layers and a coordinating stamp set. These can be purchased separately or together in a bundle. As always, I will bring in a few additional supplies to the project. If you would like a list of the supplies I'm using, one has been provided for you in the description below, along with my affiliate link to the Trinity Stamps shop. Let's go ahead and get started with the project. We're going to create the background first so that it has time to dry. I'm starting with a cold press watercolor paper because I'll be using a wet on wet technique. I'm going to lightly spritz my paper with water to help the paint flow smoothly. Then I'll mix a bit of my shimmery watercolor paint with water to create a soft spring palette. These watercolors are highly pigmented, so I'm diluting them to create a more pastel-like effect. When I'm choosing colors for a background, I like to work within a harmonious color family. Sticking to colors that blend well together prevents that muddy result. If you try to use colors that clash, like purple and yellow, or red and green, you might end up with brown tones instead of bright, fresh blends. Most watercolor pigments like these will be intense. If there is more color than you like, you can always spritz a little water over the top. As you can see, this helps to blend and soften the pigments. Now that my first layer of color is down, I'm going to use a heat tool to speed up the drying process. If you prefer, you can let this air dry for a more natural effect. Once it's dry, I'm going to add a few spatters of white acrylic paint. This is going to soften the colors and it adds a little texture to the background. I am going to set this aside to dry for a few hours. This needs to be completely set before we run it through the die cut machine. All right, now our background is dry, so I'm going to cut out a rectangle using the Emergency Essentials die set. Our next step will be to create the floral design. I'm going to use the Garden Flowers die set to cut floral shapes from our background. Some of these flowers have the center piece attached to the die, and those might not work so well for this project. I'm going to start cutting out my shapes in this upper corner, and I'll move diagonally across to the other side. As I cut these flowers out, I am saving the small pieces. These are going to be great for another card making project or a scrapbook page. To create a more polished look, I'm going to place the die partially off the edge of my paper and create a frame-like effect. To prevent the dies from cutting all the way through, I'm placing the top plate edge where I want the cut to stop. This is going to cut out the petals, but there's still space for me to create a frame. After running it through the die cutting machine, all I need to do is grab my ruler and a craft knife to cut a straight edge. Doing this will take a little more time, so if you're lacking some patience today, go ahead and cut through to the edge. Your card will still look amazing. If you're enjoying these card making tips today, make sure you take a few moments to tap that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future tutorials. All right, now our background is done. Let's cut out a few more items for the card. For my sentiment, I'm using the Simply Sentimental Friends die collection. I have already added double-sided adhesive to the back of the cardstock before cutting. This makes these letters much easier to adhere to my shadow layer. After you have run this through the die cutting machine, make sure that you remove that die slowly so that the letters stay in place. From white cardstock, I cut the shadow layer, and I'm cutting the background piece that will sit behind the flowers. Before we put this all together, I do want to quickly show you all of the pieces that you're going to need for the project. With another emergency essentials die, I've cut a blue-green cardstock that will create a frame around the watercolor layer. This white cardstock here is sized to sit behind the cutouts. I also have my shadow layer and the sentiment. I placed the letters in a way so that I could layer this panel over the top, but I might change my mind once I put everything together. All right, let's go ahead and assemble the card. I'm going to adhere my floral background to the white cardstock layer using some 1mm foam tape. This is going to give a little bit of dimension to the card without making it too bulky for mailing. If you wanted to, you could turn this into a shaker card by adding acetate and some sequins in the die-cut flowers. Floral clay bits, gems, or the new sparkle spots from Trinity stamps would look adorable in this card. Originally, I had planned to place this directly onto that blue-green cardstock, but I feel like it needs another layer. This darker purple creates a separation between the two. I also feel like it makes those shimmery paints and the flowers really pop. Now that our card layers are done, let's go ahead and finish up our sentiment. Remember, this was cut out with double-sided tape on the back. This added step saves so much time when it comes to putting this all together. Having a good collection of sentiment dies is so helpful for card making because you can mix and match them with different designs. Trinity Stamps has a wonderful collection of simply sentiments. As a card maker, sentiments are something that I will use over and over again. What are some of your favorite sentiment styles? Do you prefer script, block letters, or a mix of both? Let me know in the comments. Now that our layers are adhered, I'm adding my sentiment using some foam tape. Below this, I'm going to add a stamped phrase. This is going to be heat embossed, so I'll quickly brush a little anti-static powder onto the cardstock and stamp my words with white pigment ink. For such a small phrase, I'm using fine white embossing powder. The white pigment ink will help fill in some of the gaps that I might have missed. I trimmed this down to a 1/2 inch wide, and it's going to be tucked right under the friends phrase. How cute is that? To finish this design, I'm going to add a delicate vellum butterfly. This just adds to that airy spring feel of the card. Now at this point, I thought I was done, but every card needs a little bit of bling. I grabbed some lovely little pearlescent heart embellishments to create flower centers. These embellishments come in multiple colors on the Trinity Stamps site. You can easily match them with different watercolor palettes. I'm going to finish adhering these in place, and then I'll share the completed card with you. And here is our finished card making project. I love how the shimmery watercolor background adds so much depth and texture to the design, and the flower cutouts just scream spring. What do you think? Are you going to try this technique? Let me know in the comments. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope this project inspired you to try something new. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future projects. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.